If you ask a marketing director what their team does all day, um, they'll probably paint a picture of just pure, unadulterated creation.
Oh, yeah. The dream scenario.
Right, like they'll talk about brilliant strategists sitting in a glass boardroom, pitching wild ideas and, sketching out the next great viral campaign. But if you actually look at their screen time, if you measure the actual minutes in their week, you find out they spend, gosh, about 60% of their day just playing digital detective.
Yes. Digital detective is the perfect way to phrase it.
Because they're hunting for lost PDFs or trying to decode out-of-context Slack threads and just desperately trying to remember where that one specific piece of client feedback was saved.
You have a massive gap between the perception of the job and the actual execution.
Yeah.
I mean, the creative part, the brainstorming, the writing, the designing, is really just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Beneath the surface, the bulk of a marketing professional's day is consumed by heavy, manual, administrative friction.
So much friction.
Exactly. You're constantly switching contexts, moving between different apps, trying to string together disjointed pieces of information just to, get to the starting line of the actual work.
Which brings us right to the core premise we are unpacking in today's deep dive. We're looking at a guide called Notion AI, Streamlining Marketing Workflows and Team Execution.
It's a really fascinating read.
It is, and our mission today is to explore how a team's execution fundamentally shifts when you stop treating artificial intelligence as a separate tool, like, a chatbot open in another tab, and start embedding it directly into the workspace where the actual work is happening.
Right, moving from a dozen scattered tools into a unified ecosystem where your docs, your projects, your databases all talk to each other through an AI layer.
Because right now, marketing sometimes feels less like Mad Men and more like playing a digital detective trying to find a lost PDF across 5 different apps.
Totally. I mean, think about the life cycle of a typical campaign. It never lives in just one place. The initial spark happens in a Slack message.
Yep.
Then there's a formal client call on Zoom. After that, someone updates a content calendar in the spreadsheet. Then a project brief gets drafted in a word processor.
And visual assets get dumped into a random cloud storage folder somewhere.
Exactly. So by the time a copywriter finally sits down to do the creative work, the momentum is entirely dead. They are forced to play archaeologists, digging through layers of digital sediment just to figure out what they are actually supposed to be doing.
Okay, let's unpack this because the first hurdle is just finding the context, right?
Yeah.
Before you can do any work, you have to figure out what you're doing. But if my team is operating across all those different platforms, my digital desk is an absolute mess.
Right.
So if you introduce an AI to that environment, isn't it just going to scrape our messy Slack channels and disorganized folders and regurgitate our own bad notes? Does a super-powered AI magnifying glass actually fix the disorganization or just help me see the mess faster?
Well, that is the precise bottleneck that traditional search engines hit. Traditional search relies on keyword indexing.
Like exact matches.
Exactly. If you type the word newsletter into your search bar, the system just rapidly scans for every document, message, or file that contains the exact string of letters NEWSLETTR, and it hands you back a list of 50 disorganized results.
Which is overwhelming.
It doesn't know what you actually need.
Yeah.
It just knows what you typed. But what the guide talks about with embedded AI workspaces, specifically utilizing enterprise search, is a shift towards semantic understanding.
Semantic understanding meaning it comprehends the intent behind the search, not just the vocabulary.
Precisely. It maps the meaning of your question to the context of the data. So instead of typing a keyword, you can ask a natural question. You can type, what did the client say they hated about the landing page revision?
Okay, I love that.
Yeah, the AI scans across your connected tools, the project briefs, the meeting transcripts, the internal wikis, and it understands the concept of the landing page revision and the concept of negative client feedback, even if the word hate was never explicitly used in the document.
So it might pull from a transcript where the client said, I feel like the call to action is a bit too aggressive, and the AI recognizes that as the answer to my question about what they hated.
Yes, exactly. It
Yeah.
synthesizes the answer and provides the direct context, because marketing work depends almost entirely on speed and momentum.
Right.
Tasks come from everywhere. And when your team can retrieve the original instruction instantly without having to manually dig through a week's worth of chats, the execution speeds up exponentially.
Mm,
You are shifting the entire paradigm from where did I save that document
yeah.
to what is the answer to my question?
I see the distinction. It's moving from finding a location to finding a solution.
Right.
But, if semantic search solves the problem of retrieving past context, we still have to address where that context is generated in the first place, because if the original data is flawed, the search won't save you.
So true.
And the primary place where context is generated and where it frequently dies, honestly, is real-time collaboration, the meeting.
Yes. The necessary evil of the corporate world. Meetings are incredibly dense with vital data. You have deadlines flying around, audience insights being debated, strategic pivots being made in real time. But the fatal flaw is how we capture that data.
Usually someone frantically typing on a laptop.
Exactly. Usually you have one person on the team designated to take notes. But human beings are notoriously bad at dual processing. If you are manually typing out notes, focusing on capturing the syntax of what is being said, you are physically and cognitively unable to be fully present in the strategic conversation.
You essentially turn your highest paid strategist into a human transcriptionist. They aren't synthesizing the information, they're just desperately trying to keep up with the typing speed.
Exactly.
And the actual bottleneck in marketing isn't a lack of creativity, it's a lack of working memory. Teams are basically suffering from corporate amnesia every time a meeting ends. The brilliant ideas just evaporate the second everyone logs off the call.
And even if that designated note taker captures a decent transcript, raw notes are not inherently useful.
No, not at all.
After the meeting, someone still has to spend an hour cleaning up that document, deciphering the shorthand, summarizing the main points, and translating those vague conversations into concrete assigned tasks.
Which usually happens like 3 days later, at which point half the nuance is completely forgotten.
Yes.
This is where embedding AI directly into the meeting notes fundamentally alters the workflow. Rather than a standalone transcription service, an integrated AI meeting note system captures the conversation, summarizes the core narrative, and automatically extracts the action items directly into the workspace where the team already operates.
It completely solves the dual processing problem. When the AI handles the mechanical capture and synthesis, the human beings in the room are freed up to actually listen, debate, and look the client in the eye.
Which is huge.
It is. But more importantly, it addresses a core philosophy about knowledge work that the source highlights. Knowledge is most valuable when it's applied. A brainstorming session is useless if it doesn't result in execution.
So it's like having a dedicated executive assistant sitting in the corner of the room whose only job is to care about the so what of the meeting. They don't care about the small talk. They're just waiting to distill the conversation into an assigned next step, leaving you free to actually talk to the client.
I think that's a highly accurate way to look at it. It ensures that meetings lead to movement. By having the AI identify the action items instantly, you turn a scattered hour-long debate into immediate usable tasks.
Yeah.
You entirely eliminate the lag time between talking about the work and actually doing the work.
Okay, so the meeting ends. The AI has distilled the chaos into a clear, assigned action item, and now someone on the team actually has to sit down and do the hardest part of the job. They have to transition from talking about the task to conquering the blank page.
And we really cannot overstate the sheer volume of text generation required in modern marketing.
Oh, it's endless.
Teams are churning out social media captions, blog outlines, email newsletters, campaign briefs, ad angles, video scripts, landing page copy every single day. The throughput required is just immense.
And starting from a blank page is a massive psychological and temporal drain. It is the most intimidating thing in the world. Even if you know exactly what you want to say.
Oh, definitely.
You know the topic, you have the research in front of you, the meeting notes are perfectly summarized, but getting those first few structural sentences onto the page just feels like pulling teeth.
That friction exists because turning a conceptual topic into a clear, formatted draft requires two entirely different cognitive muscles. Conceptualizing the idea is creative and strategic,
Right.
but putting it onto a page requires structural, mechanical formatting. A blog topic still needs H2 and H3 headers. A newsletter concept still needs a compelling subject line and a hook. The blank page forces you to do the structural formatting and the creative thinking at the exact same time.
Which inevitably leads to writer's block.
Exactly. And the source explicitly points out that Notion AI can generate drafts, rewrite text, or change the tone to help with this.
Wait, here's where it gets really interesting, though, because if I hear that that the AI is generating drafts and changing tone, does this mean the AI is taking over the creative strategy? Are we just letting the workspace run the brand now? I mean, are we just outsourcing our unique voice to a machine?
It's a totally valid fear, but the text is very explicit about this caveat. Absolutely not. AI doesn't replace creativity or strategy. The goal of an embedded AI is simply to remove the friction of the first version.
The dreaded rough draft.
Exactly. Let's look at a highly specific example from the text. Let's say the action item from the meeting is, we need a LinkedIn post about why mid-sized businesses should document their internal processes.
Okay.
If a human sits down to write that from scratch, they might spend 30 minutes just trying to figure out the opening hook and how to format the bullet points. But if you drop that rough sentence into the AI workspace and ask for a first draft, it instantly generates a structured post.
But it's still a machine-generated draft. It might be structured, but it lacks the soul of the brand.
And that is exactly where the human takes over. The human team must review, edit, fact-check, and ensure it sounds like the brand. The human is still entirely responsible for the final product.
Right, yeah.
But here is the key psychological shift. Editing a mediocre first draft is infinitely faster and less draining than staring at a blinking cursor on a white screen. It shifts the human's role from raw text generation to strategic refinement.
That reframing is crucial. You're elevating the human from a typist to an editor-in-chief.
Exactly.
You're letting the machine do the heavy lifting of the structural formatting so the human can spend their mental energy on the nuance. But let's zoom out, because writing one great nuanced draft is fine, but marketing isn't about one-off deliverables.
No, it's not.
It's about building an entire ecosystem of consistent publishing. How do you scale that single draft across a massive team?
Well, that requires a transition from content creation to content management. Marketing teams have ideas coming at them constantly. Inspiration strikes during a sales call or while reading competitor research or listening to a podcast.
Right.
But if you don't have a centralized, organized calendar to put those ideas, they are basically useless.
They just become a graveyard of forgotten voice memos and random Notes app entries, which is why every marketing team inevitably tries to build a content calendar.
But maintaining a traditional content calendar, manually adding titles, platforms, content pillars, published dates, is incredibly tedious. It's a chore.
And we all know what happens next. The second the team gets busy or a major launch happens, updating that calendar is the very first administrative task that gets dropped.
Every time.
Suddenly, your master plan is 3 weeks out of date, the spreadsheet is a ghost town,
Yeah.
and everyone is flying blind again, just reacting to whatever is most urgent.
This is where Notion combines databases with AI-supported organization. When you embed AI inside a database, not just inside a text document, it can perform data manipulation and organization automatically.
Okay, so what does that all mean in practice?
Imagine you drop a rough idea for a campaign into your database. The AI can be programmed to automatically read that rough idea, draft a proposed social media caption, summarize the core message into a one-sentence pitch, and automatically suggest the appropriate content category or pillar.
So it sounds like we are turning a static list of sticky notes into an active working machine.
That's exactly it. The text specifically states a content calendar becomes a working system to plan, create, review, approve, and publish. It's no longer just a passive list that requires constant manual upkeep.
I really like that concept of an active working system because when you have a system like that in place, the work flows beautifully. Everyone knows what they're doing. But there's always a catch with complex systems. What happens when the architect of that system, the person who built the tags, the workflows, the routing rules, goes completely off the grid for a 2-week vacation? The whole machine grinds to a halt because the instructions are trapped in their head.
Which brings us to the final hurdle, preserving the context we've worked so hard to build. Marketing has highly repeatable processes. Every time you launch a new ad campaign, upload a podcast clip, or send out a monthly newsletter, there's a very specific sequence of events that needs to happen.
Right.
But when new people join, or someone is busy or on vacation, work slows down to a crawl without an SOP, a standard operating procedure. Senior team members spend hours repeating the same basic instructions, and mistakes inevitably slip through.
We all know the solution to this is building SOPs. But let's be honest, I always thought of SOPs as incredibly boring corporate red tape. How does this actually help the listener's team day to day? Because spending hours writing a formal manual feels like busy work.
It does feel like busy work, yes. But documented workflows mean you aren't just completing tasks. You are building a resilient system. It allows faster training, better delegation, and prevents repeated mistakes. And an embedded AI flips the dynamic completely. It removes the burden of technical writing.
So how does drafting an SOP change when the AI is embedded in the workspace?
Use this specific example from the source. Publishing a blog post. Normally, the expert would have to sit down, format a document, create headers, write out clear instructions. With the AI, that expert can just open a page and type a stream of consciousness list of notes.
It's a total brain dump.
Exactly. They might just jot down, check the formatting, add the SEO title, write a meta description, upload to WordPress, and repurpose for the Tuesday email. Just rough notes.
And then what?
And then, with a single prompt, they ask the AI to reverse engineer that brain dump into a formal, structured standard operating procedure. The AI parses the steps, organizes them logically, creates checkboxes, and formats the final document perfectly.
That is a brilliant application. You are getting the benefit of rigorous corporate documentation without the excruciating pain of corporate bureaucracy.
Exactly. And the downstream effects are profound. You aren't relying on a senior staff member to handhold new hires. The work keeps moving, regardless of who happens to be sitting at the desk that day.
It really paints a cohesive picture of a completely different way of operating. To wrap up today's journey, we've seen that Notion AI isn't just a writing tool, it's a fundamental shift in how teams operate.
Absolutely.
By putting AI directly inside the workspace, the docs, the projects, the databases teams spend way less time searching, summarizing, and repeating instructions.
And the ultimate bottom line from the source is all about resource allocation. Reducing all that admin work means the team actually has more time to do the work that grows the business.
Yeah, you're giving the team their time and their cognitive bandwidth back. Which brings us right back to where we started. We talked about how modern marketing can feel less like being a visionary creator and more like being a digital detective, just constantly searching for lost clues across a dozen apps.
Right.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder on your own as you look at your own team's workflows. We all complain about being too busy, but if an AI workspace completely removes the heavy, scattered manual work, the searching, the endless scheduling, the manual formatting, what does your team's day actually look like? When the comfortable excuse of "I was too busy organizing my files" disappears, what massive creative problems will you finally have the brain space to solve?